Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to council time this Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. We'll start with the roll call.
Counselor Young.
Here.
Counselor Belcott. Present. Counselor Fuentes.
Here.
Counselor Little.
Here.
And Chair Marshall.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I have two. One under 4.2, it's just the April 1st council meeting. Just want to talk about moving that date. And then 9.1 under executive session for pending litigation, RCW 4230-110.
Oh, wait a second.
42
42,
30
30,
110
110.
parentheses I or 1, I'm sorry, and then parentheses little I. And that'll be for 30 minutes, no after action.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks for those amendments to the agenda. Public comment. Public comment is allowed on agenda items only. And is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak? Oh, Michelle has the list. And just a reminder, the limit is 3 minutes for your comments. And agenda items only.
Mark Lead.
Oh, press the button, please.
I'm Mark Lead, and I serve as chair of the Lewitt Group of the Sierra Club, and I'm also on the Washington chapter of the Sierra Club's Conservation Committee. And I'm commenting on something from your old business from last week for last week's minutes to do with the Dabbler Forest. One of the major priorities right now for the Washington chapter of Sierra Club is protecting our structurally complex carbon-dense forests. And so we support the council's letter to DNR Commissioner Upthegrove to address the council's concerns about the Dabbler cut. I personally favor the proposal to swap the Dabbler cut with a new cut in one of the DNR units that has lower quality owl habitat, although thinning would also be a less damaging option than a clear cut or a near clear cut, which I think is the current prescription for the cut. We also support a buffer between the cut and the adjacent old growth stand. And so I'd just like to thank you for your time and your continued advocacy on this issue.
Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Carmen De Leon.
There we go.
I can go last. You can go first. They both signed up. I'll be last.
BJ Swearer.
Is it on?
It's
Okay. Cool.
on. Yes, thanks.
Hi, thanks. I'm just commenting about the Tri Mountain Golf Course situation. First, thank you guys for really taking this kind of seriously. I'm shocked at how responsive you've all been, so I really appreciate that. After dealing with the city of Portland and golf stuff over the years, this has been great. So on the last meeting where Tri Mountain was discussed, I'm glad that everybody kind of commented on the situation with the discussion of negotiations about the land trust that the tribe was looking to, seek land trust for the golf course should that sale go through. Because I'm wanting to press unmute to say the same thing, that if that went through, then you could lose the golf course because it would become reservation land and your covenant agreement would be voided and all that anyway. So it sounds like that now is not the case anymore with the deal going or not going through. So I'm just curious about the options going forward. I know I've sent you guys some emails and hopefully you're able to kind of look through those and some of the numbers. I'd love to hear some comment on those numbers because, I could be misinterpreting the data in terms of what the financial situation is with the golf course. At least from my reading of the numbers, it shouldn't be a money problem. There should be over $2 million, almost $2 million in the golf fund, netted $280,000 last year, netted $880,000 since 2019. So the golf course should be financially sustainable. I know there's some deferred maintenance issues coming up, but those should be covered. As I've made very clear, I don't think there should be no reason to sell this golf course. The other issue you run into that if you do sell the golf course, you may not get an owner that's going to be responsible anyway, a new owner. The primary reason for a lot of golf courses closing down is because you have negligent, incompetent ownership, and they end up running it into the ground and then sell it off for redevelopment and housing. So I would advise against selling. I think the county can run the golf course internally. I think you can save money instead of hiring out a third-party contractor to run the golf course. If you're in any discussions connected with Longview, City of Longview, they operate Mint Valley, which is a municipal course. And to my knowledge, it's all Parks and Rec employees. They have a golf manager, they have Parks and Rec employees, they run the golf course, and they provide the cheapest golf in Southwest Washington. So I think you have plenty of options available. I would, urge against selling, and, take the next 6 months. You could extend out Troon and let them continue to run it for the end of the calendar year. But I think you have options available. So happy to help. Thanks.
Thank you. That's up early on our agenda if you want to stick around and listen to the deliberations. Other comments?
Carmen De Leon,
Oh,
Teresa Hardy, did
There
you
we go.
want to go? You weren't on the schedule.
go
Good
ahead.
morning, Teresa Hardy. I'm also here from the Sierra Club. Mark already addressed for council to consider option number one, the swap. We already know that DNR is able to swap out the legacy forest acreage for other land that is not structurally complex as a way to comply with the law, practice better timber harvesting, and fund the beneficiaries. Friends of Clark County and Sierra Club sent you an email each that outlines what you are allowed to do with the documentation and the rationale. So I'm not going to go into detail about that a lot. Hopefully we'll have someone else that will be calling in that will also address what legally you can do and you can't. We have to remember that back in December, DNR knew that at least 10 to 13 counties around the state did not want legacy forest. They went forward. You sent them 2 letters. You've addressed to them the fact that we, the constituents, the county, are very opposed to this legacy cut. The DNR does not target older forests, is what they say. However, although there were older forests that were temporarily set aside and later released for commercial harvest under the HCP amendment, DNR has continued to clear cut mature and structurally complex forest at roughly the same rate every year since the original HP was adopted in 1997. And for the public, I'd like to reread what you sent, a part of what you sent in your letter on 2/20. You stated this: Clark County contains very few remaining legacy forest resources and older tree areas. The Dabbler area sale contains structurally complex natural regenerative forests that are approaching old growth and therefore highly valued by our community. Not only do these remnants of our original forests provide wildlife habitat, promote watershed health, and mitigate climate impacts, but they provide public recreation and economic opportunities beyond the dollars generated through harvest alone. Sherry Field went out to the site. She's reported about it. There is strong opposition. I will say again, we are in alignment with FOCC, and we ask you to write a letter in which you state that we want to swap out this legacy forest for another forest area. We will not lose the money on it. Stimson knew going into this that there was an appeal, that it was being opposed, and we need to stand strong as a county and protect our forests moving into old growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was from the cut. I went out there and this was.
Carmen De
Okay,
Leon?
we've seen your submittal. Okay, Carmen,
Just wanna hold
you're up.
Hello, my name is Carmen De Leon and I go by Mello, in case you forgot. So I'm talking about the same thing as them and also about the minutes of the 5th because I listened to it and they were talking about the bikes and stuff. And like I've said before, because I went to the council meeting yesterday for the C-Tran, but there were 42 people ahead of me, so I split, but I would like to, since you guys already talked about bikes, you want people on the street, you offer them safe biking, which is a freezing ground and it becomes a ice slick anywhere you go. That's why I've talked about heated pathways and heated, even the bridge, you can heat it so that it doesn't freeze and people don't crash and die when the snow comes, because we know we get freezing rain and sleet and snow and all of that. It would actually protect the roads in the long run if you just heat them and don't let them freeze up and get destroyed. I'm just saying that. And with the bike thing is, yeah, only 2 bikes fit on the bus. And I can't go with my nephew. We're done. We can't bring his brother. You got 2 bikes and you're done. That's why I thought, okay, how do you add more bikes? Maybe get rid of a couple of seats on the bus. And then people, because usually the bus driver says, you'll have to wait for the next one. Bye. And we're screwed. You're late for whatever appointment, we need more bikes. That's just what I'm saying, because I like to take the bus, go up Mill Plain and then ride down, because it's really a pretty steep hill up Grand Boulevard up there, by Mill Plain. So I'm just saying more bikes on buses, and for the ground to be, it's possible to make it non-freezable, to have a safe roadway and to make the road so that they won't freeze up and people won't be afraid to ride their bike on the concrete. That being said, when it comes to the clear cutting, my stomach just turns, because I know that I think it was Sweden who banned all clear cutting. And that makes the most sense to me, because you can't get more land. You can't regrow a forest. It takes 100 years to get one. But you can grow hemp and bamboo at 3 times the rate, and you can sell it off. And the hemp bricks, once they're condensed to build things, takes 4 times the heat to burn. So they're actually fire retardant buildings. If you can get somebody to start really growing hemp and manufacturing things with hemp and with bamboo, that, like I said, if you have an empty place you want to keep the logging interesting alive, there's other things that you can grow that will replenish itself within, like, one tree, oak tree takes 5 years. This would redo itself in like 1 or 2. So why wouldn't you want to grow hemp and bamboo? It's easy and it grows like crazy. You should see it. You can't even get rid of it. And that's all I'm saying is to clear cut any forest is just sickening and not doing a favor to the earth and to us.
Thank you. There's one more in the audience that someone has their hand up.
If you want to go ahead and come to the mic and please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Tanya Inger. I wanted to speak on the minutes from March 5th about the letter that Councilor Little, the points that he proposed for the letter to be written to DNR. I just wanted to point out a couple things. One, I think it's crucial that we need to stress that swapping the rest of the acreage that hasn't been already cut is what needs to be asked for. I appreciate looking for some other options that, might be facilitating, outcomes, but to be honest, I think the second two options there are a little too capitulating to the DNR. They've already, they had their chance to do those options, and from experience, they're not going to go for that. Bottom line, Stimson Lumber Co. was aware of the litigation. DNR did not supply the correct files, statutory obligated by law. So there is no reason why we need to capitulate to DNR about giving them any more, not one more acre. Apologize, I'm a little emotional about this because I went and saw with my own eyes the damage that has been done. And when you drive up there, you can see all the way up, all the clear cuts already done. How much clear cuts are we gonna allow? I understand that you guys want to work together with these agencies, but I need to remind you that this is county land. This is our assets. This is our future. And I really need to stress to you that it is unacceptable to allow one more acre to be cut. Another interesting thing is that Steve Ogden, Assistant Regional Director or whatever, and Dwayne Emmons, they came and talked to you about how this is going to fund schools. Well, interestingly, Steve Ogden has never been up to the Dabbler. None of those men have. They have not seen with their own eyes what is at stake. They do not live here. Also, if it's about school revenue, we can achieve the same amount of school revenue for Battleground School District with other cuts. This is about mature timber. This is about the value of mature timber, plain and simple. And nothing else. It's not about school revenue. They don't care about Battleground School or any other school in Clark County. This is about timber revenue from mature trees. And I apologize for my sharpness, but I do encourage you to come up there and look with me and see what's at stake. Thank you.
Thank you. So
I don't have any more
anyone
signed up,
online?
but I have 3 online.
3 online. Okay,
Mhm.
well, let's take them one at a time.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please go ahead and state your name for the record and go ahead with your comment.
This is Kimberly Goheen Elvin, life citizen of Clark County, Washington. I'm a little bit under the weather, and I so appreciate all the concerned citizens, that's for sure. So pay attention to what we have to say, as you are there for the people, by the people, and of the people, and we are your boss. So keep Tri-Mountain Golf Course for public use. And on number 5, new business, 5.1, does not, the monies do not add up. Hard-earned tax dollars don't add up on this one. So I call for an audit on this particular agenda that's using, you guys are getting new taxes, you're hiring our taxes to fill in Clark County's deficit, and that's appalling, as this council should have stayed on budget. And this new business is another example, in my opinion, of repaying yourselves, being a bigger government and things like that, at the expense of the taxpayer. So on the minutes of the 5th here, it's addressing the community planning overview, and I'm all for stopping the 40-year population pollution, and all forest and farmlands must have a protected overlay, and the county should help those who own the lands to keep the environment free from development. It's been stated that the contractors and developers, they're not from here and they don't give a crap about us. So I ask Oliver and Kathleen Otto, both very powerful unelected officials, to stop development in Clark County this past 40, 50 years, and reduce your staff so hard-earned tax dollars can be used to save our environment here in Clark County. We want that country heritage. We want to keep it, and there's people going to be fighting for it. Remember, when one person speaks, there's 100 or more behind us. I'm actually finding myself resentful of all those who have moved here to make their living off our heritage of a country setting. They move to the country and make it a city. That can't happen anymore. I asked Oliver, again, to stop development and put the overlay of protection on Clark County, Washington, USA. we the people have suffered through these 4 last years of trauma, I might add, the COVID pandemic. But so not all counties in Washington state want to overpopulate. We joined the GMA on purpose because they want to develop us, and we don't want that anymore. So we're going to get out of the GMA, and our country-setting heritage is worth fighting for. Growth can subside for a while, and Clark County can stop migration for a while also. And I'm going to mention migration. This actually is a sanctuary county. Vancouver is on record stating that they are harboring illegal immigrants. We want, including Ridgefield, we need to watch how many illegal immigrants are coming into that town that's booming. But we want to.
Okay, thank you. Your time is up. Next caller.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please state your name for the record and go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. I'm Kyle McBride. I live in La Center. I'm calling in support of Tri-Mountain Golf Course. I play up there quite a bit. I'm also on a very part-time basis during the season on the maintenance crew, and also recently just joined the staff in the pro shop, again on a very, very small part-time basis. I just want to encourage the council to view the golf course not only as an asset, but as a very valued part of the community. The community around the golf course. Just last night, we had probably 30 high school girls out there getting ready for the season. And I know throughout the spring season, there's probably 8 different high schools, both boys and girls golf, that use the facility. You also have parents and their kids getting out there and recreating, and I think it's extremely valuable for that to continue to happen. The other point I wanted to make is it needs to be run as a business, and unfortunately there's some money that needs to be put back into the course, but that's just part of having a course and funding it and keeping it going. So those were really the only 2 comments I wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please go ahead and state your name for the record and go ahead with your comment.
All right, my name is Mary Goody, and I speak today as a member of Friends of Clark County and a concerned citizen. Yesterday, Friends of Clark County sent a letter to you regarding your proposed letter to the DNR with options regarding the Dabbler and other structurally complex forest units in Clark County. I will not reiterate the contents. I do want to remind the council that we have valuable partners in our own county who can support and assist the council in their quest to better understand this rich and biodiverse area. I'm speaking about the county foresters, Hunter Decker and Kevin Tyler, and the members of our planning commission who are the DNR contacts. So I hope the council will entertain our ask for a respectful and direct response from the DNR regarding your original letter, and also involve our own local experts in your research regarding this wonderful and beautiful place that we want to preserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude our commenters? Thank you, Michelle. Okay, moving on to old business, 4.1, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I do, Chair.
Go ahead.
So I saw under bridge shelter update, second to last bullet, it did say 2.1 million from the mental health sales tax fund can be used for operational support. I'd just like to add that we also discussed and possibly for capital if the legislation passes. And then I have another suggested edit on the next page on policy issues with Jordan. Tried to summarize the request for a letter. It does a pretty good job, but there's a couple words in there that should probably be removed. The second bullet under Dabbler, I would remove in the first sentence, one of those two words. And then further down in the second sentence, it says a health buffer. And I think that they were trying to say a healthy buffer. I just removed the word health. That's it.
Okay, with those changes, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I can make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for your second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, on to Tri-Mountain Golf Course. And Michelle, I think you're going to be briefing us.
Good afternoon, counselors. Can you hear me? Okay. So as was stated earlier, Cowlitz did pull out of purchasing the golf course. And so we do have some decisions to make about moving forward with the course. And so were we going to present the financials?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you? Perfect. Yeah, we go to the first tab on the Excel spreadsheet.
What if you could provide a little historical information
Yep.
for folks? Because this has been a topic that's been discussed for several years.
Yep. So the property, land only, where the golf course currently sits, was purchased in June of 1993 by the Port of Ridgefield. In January of 97, the Port of Ridgefield entered into a memorandum of understanding with Clark County to purchase the golf course from the port and grant the port a lease option to the facility. Under the terms of the lease, the port would be responsible for paying a variable rent to the county. In September of 97, Clark County assumed full ownership of the Tri-Mountain Golf Course after the Port of Ridgefield could not financially continue supporting the facility. Pursuant to that, we got into a third-party management operation agreement. And so today we've got an 18-hole golf course out there with a number of facilities on it, a driving range, a clubhouse, and other amenities. And Indigo Golf, also known as Troon, is currently our management. They have been managing the course for over 20 years for us now. Their current contract is nearing expiration. And so we are looking at options now that we're not going to be selling it to Cowlitz of what to do with that agreement. If we extend it out temporarily, then go out to RFP, or if we look at other options for the course. And the financials are up on the screen. And so this, what I'm going to show is sort of how our financials have done over the years. And so this has a lot of history on it going back. So the first column is our facilities fund, and that's where we do maintenance and operations from. A lot of the maintenance and operation for the course are called out in the management agreement, but there are certain things that are the obligation of the county to do. And so that's what we pay currently out of our Fund 5093. And those, as you can see, I've got data that goes back to 2005. That's what I've been able to collect. And you'll see in 2008 and 9, there's a significant increase. That's when we installed some irrigation system and we had a lot of labor in-house to install that. But on average, you can see it's about $50,000 to $60,000 a year on average that facility spends above and beyond what Indigo Golf spends on maintaining that course. That has all been revenue that supported that from the general fund. The general fund sends a contribution to the facilities fund to support the course. In 2019, if you go down just a little bit, Michelle, in 2019, we were able to replace part of the funds from the general fund with revenue from the actual golf course fund. So they began sending $45,000 a year over to help support that. So, and we've continued that on since then. So anything above the 45,000 is still a general fund contribution towards the course. So in total, since 2005, we have spent about $1.16 million on maintenance and operations additional charges from facilities on the course. And that does not include the overhead factor. And our overhead is things like our managers, our fleet vehicles, our tools we purchase to do the jobs for facilities, because we treat that as just a general fund component. So those numbers aren't in here, but that equates to probably 100 to 200,000 on top of this 1.15 million. The next column is our bond debt and interest on a loan that we took out for the golf course. So as you can see, that loan was supposed to be paid off in 2027. We decided to pay that loan off early with REIT 2 funding in 2020 at the tune of 3.5 million that year. So that's why you see those additional lines for 2021 to 2027 crossed out, because those loan payments didn't have to be made because we front loaded and paid off the loan early. With the bond debt interest loan that we took out on this course, up until 2008, that was covered by the general fund. And then starting in 2009, REIT 2 took over the payment of that because it could be considered park recreational type facility. So in all, we spent $15.6 million, not of course revenue, to fund the bond on that. And then the next column is extrapolation. A couple of years ago, I was asked, what county resources are really going into supporting the course? And so besides the facilities and bond debt, we also have a number of general fund employees, a finance manager, some OAs, some other administrative staff that helps out in reconciling the books. And so the state auditor requires that even though we have a management company running it, since we consider all the revenue coming from the course and all of the stock that's out there to be county resources, we have to audit the books. And so we get financials from them on a monthly basis and requests for funding, and so we need to audit that. And so if you go down a little bit to the gray bar, you'll see that those numbers you see there are made up of an OA who does our revenue reconciliation. That takes approximately 7 hours a month to do. An OA who does our expense reconciliation for the course, that's about 10 to 12 hours a month. A finance manager who spends about 3 to 5 hours a month on checking the work of the OAs and also doing journals, moving the revenue because it's held in a holding pot until we do reconciliations. And then we also have surplus people because all of the lost and found out of the course is considered county lost and found. So we hold it at the course for 30 days under the management company and then bring it here to the county for 30 days. And then we have to inventory it. And then after the 30 days, we disperse of the lost and found per our policies. And then once a year, we have to do a full-blown audit. We go out to the clubhouse and we have to count all of their inventory and make sure that the stock they have out there is what they're reporting to us, that there hasn't been any losses, anything that's disappeared. So there's quite a few hours the county staff still has to put in, even with a management company running the course for us. And again, those hours are all also supported by general fund revenue. And then we get into the actual true Tri-Mountain Golf Course Fund. Can you go up to the top columns F and G? So these columns show the expenses that actually hit the Tri-Mountain Golf Course Fund and the revenue that actually comes in the Tri-Mountain Golf Course Fund. And the first column, F, shows the expenses. And so these expenses are built up of the management contract. We pay the management company per contractual agreed amount on a monthly basis. And then should they meet or exceed the prior years, there are incentive payments they get. And then there's also, because all the stock out there is considered county stock, and they pay for it, and then we have to reimburse them for the actual cost because we get 100% of the revenue. So from the sale of those items. So if someone buys a beverage out there, we're reimbursing them for the exact cost they paid for the beverage, but we get 100% of the revenue back from the beverage. And so the H column shows how we've done for just that fund. And so if it's a positive number, that means we lost money that year, that our expenses that we had to pay out exceeded the revenue that came in from the course. And so as you can see, there's a number of years throughout this where that has been that we've been upside down, but then there's also been some positive years. You will see on line 9 and line 16 up there that there appears to be some significant numbers. Line 9 is where we refinance the bond debt, so that gets booked on there, the revenue and expense side. And line 16 is where we changed the type of fund the golf course resided under, and we had to book all the assets. So that's not true revenue expenses per se, but we have to show it because that's how it shows up on our accounting books. And then if you go down a little bit farther to the newer years, so as you can see, years prior to this year, we have been making some revenue in that fund that has helped to offset our prior loss years and build a fund balance in the fund. This year, as you can see, right now, currently, as of March 4th, we are upside down for this. And part of the reason for that is because we had to agree to a 3-month contract with Indigo that was significantly higher to get them to just do it for 3 months. We also have the 2024 incentive payment, which always comes after they reconcile the books for the year. So that always hits the next year. And then the revenue, because of the rain stuff, the revenue is always expected to be lower those first couple months of the year. We do hope this will balance out as we go through the year. As the weather improves, more people get out and golf. But right now we are upside down $525,000 in that fund for the year. So that being shown, if you can go down just a little bit to the yellow area, currently just a little farther now. Right there. So at the moment, we have about $1.6 million in our working capital, which is considered our fund balance. And if you'll go all the way over and down some more, sorry, it's a big spreadsheet, and down to this yellow, there we go. So of that 1.6, that was fund balance is 3.4. That still had the March payment that I did show above pending in it. So I hadn't actually come out of it. The 2024 incentive payment I talked about. And then we have another transfer that'll be taking place this year of $200,000 for the irrigation project we have going on. So that, if you take those out, we're actually at 1.147 for our current fund balance in our golf course fund only. So that just shows you that we do have some, but we like to keep a fund balance in there because as you saw, there's many years we don't break even. So we need to keep a fund balance in stock for those years where the weather's maybe not as good, as many people don't get out and play golf, so that we can continue to support that fund if we have some bad years. Any questions about this before we move on to the next tab? No? Okay. So the next tab.
Any questions? No questions.
So the next tab is just sort of a graph showing sort of a compilation of all the expenses that appear on all of those tabs before. And that's in the blue. And you'll see the spike years is where we talked about those were years where we had to refinance the loan or we booked assets. So those are oddball years that spike up. And then it shows just the revenue coming from the Tri-Mountain Golf Course Fund. So you can see there is a discrepancy where the revenue is lower than all of our expenses. And that difference is what's being picked up by the general fund, by REIT, by other sources of revenue. And then the next slide, please. This next slide, in 2019, we had Maine come and do a facilities condition assessment report on many of our facilities for us. One of the facilities they did do was the golf course. And so this sort of showed at that time in 2019 that should we have to replace completely all the buildings, they estimated the buildings to be worth about $7.9 million. And that includes the clubhouse, the driving range house, the driving range shelter, our golf court garage, our maintenance building, our maintenance office, so that's sort of what they valued at that time, the replacement value to be. Then they projected out for 20 years, they expected that we would need approximately $1.5 million to do major maintenance on those buildings, roofs, HVAC, repairs to siding, all the different stuff. And then for short-term deficiencies, which would be the first 6 years, they estimate we'd need about $384,000 to do repairs. At this time, besides doing some well house repairs, none of that work has been done. So that's all still outstanding. And then they also said for the irrigation repairs, they didn't call that out in the Maine report because at that time we have a John Deere irrigation system. John Deere was still supporting, maintaining, selling parts. Since the Maine report, John Deere has stopped the irrigation business. And so right now we can't get replacement parts when heads go programming units. So what we're looking at is replacing 9 of the holes with a new system that connects to the John Deere system, and then using those parts that we take out of the old system to support the other 9 holes. We have gone out to bid twice for that, have had no responsive bidders. So at this point, we can do direct negotiations if we find an irrigation company. And then another part is that we do have the pathways out there, which are starting to have roots pulling it up, divots, holes, stuff like that. That could be in the term of up to $1 million if we do a full replacement of the pathways out there. So overall, we're looking at just over $3 million of maintenance we know or deferred maintenance that we need to do on the course over the next, this was 20 years from 2019, so about the next 15 years or so. And then we talked about now that Cowlitz is not going to be purchased in the course. There's quite a few uses of the course. You could go to the next tab. So first off, we need to get into an amendment to our existing contract with Indigo and then we can have you determine which path forward you want to go. But we do need to continue to maintain the course, and the current agreement ends on March 31st. So we need to have a new agreement in place by the April 1st date. And so some of the possible, but there could be more, is to go out to an RFP for a new style of management agreement that benefits the county more financially. We could bring management services in-house. This would require hiring more employees to run the operations and budget for all the repairs and things that need to be done and the ones that are done under the current management agreement. We could look at a direct negotiation with another governmental agency. That's allowable. We could go back out to auction with covenants to stay as a golf course. We could go back out to auction with no restrictions on the property, or we could look at using the property for another use. We have been in talks with Meng about a contract extension, and they have given us a couple options. Which do you want me, or I'm sorry, Indigo Golf. We have been in contact with Indigo Golf about an amendment to the contract, and they have given us a couple options. Do you want me to share those options? Okay.
Chair. While you do that, Michelle, I'm curious because when the RFP went out for Tri-Mountain Golf Course, whenever that was, it was before my time.
It was about 20 years ago, yes.
Oh.
It's before a lot of
even
our
born
times.
yet.
Yeah.
Quick question. So Cowlitz and Center expressed interest, right? Was their intention to keep it as a public golf course as well?
For those two?
For Cowlitz, I'm sorry, not Cowlitz, for the center.
Yes, their interest, what it sounded like was they would take it on and then probably be the management company for Cowlitz is sort of what it sounded like they wanted to do.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cowlitz would purchase it and La Center would manage it?
No, the center would purchase and manage and then.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Other questions? Okay, go on.
Okay. So Indigo Golf has come back now that we've asked them if they'd be willing to do a contract amendment to extend out the contract while we look at the different options we just presented. And they said they would be willing to do that. And they've given us 3 options they'd be willing to do that under. One would be to continue the 15% increase we gave them for January through March for the remainder of the year. That they would want the incentive language put back in because we had removed the incentive language since we were just doing a 3-month agreement with them. They would want the incentive language put back in for 2025 that should they beat their expectations from last year, that incentives would go back in. That there would no capital contributions, and that the agreement would end on December 31st, 2025. Their option B would be to move to a standard management agreement. Standard management agreement would be that they would get a $12,000 per month base management fee. They would continue to operate it as they are now, but all revenue, which currently is how it exists, would be on the county, and all expenses would be on the county. So right now they pick up a lot of the expenses out of their operating fee. So I did ask them for a little bit more information on that. So they're going to provide that. We just haven't got it yet. But they did say the last couple years, their expenses have outpaced the revenue the county's been giving them. So they have been upside down. So we would take that upside down onto our books if that upside down continued. They're going to get me more information on that because this was just an option that I got recently from them. They would also put in no capital contributions, and that agreement they would do through March 31st of 2026 at the latest. Their option 3 would be to continue the agreement until December 31st, 2026. They would want the 15% increase for the rest of 2025, and then they would hold their 2026 rates at the same rate as they had this year with that 15% increase. So they would not ask for an additional increase for 26. The revenue share incentive language would go back into the contract for both 2025 and 2026. They would make no capital contributions to the course, and the agreement would go through December 31st, 2026, with an option for us to end it up to 90 days early before that date. So that would put it at the end of September if we went out to RFP and had a different management company. So they would allow us to break it 3 months early. And this, the one good thing about option 3 is it would align with the end dates of the current golf course lease agreement, because per the current agreement, they pay the golf course lease, but should we ever end a contract per contract early with them, we would have to pay off the remainder of the golf course lease. So we would be on the hook for paying that off. So this would align it where that would continue to be paid by them because they would align evenly. So those are the 3 options that are presenting to us at this time as options for renewal if we keep with them after the March 31st date. So.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Sure. What is staff recommendation of those 3 options?
Me and our contract administrator have talked this over, and we feel option C is probably the best one because it does fix the 2026 costs. So we have some more time to sort of spread out that 15% increase we'd be taking. And then also because it does align with the lease of the golf carts, we wouldn't have to pay them that when we ended the lease early, if we ended it early. And it would give us time to really determine how the council wants to proceed with the course, which are the options I presented before, or other options they might want to look at. And it allows us time, if we do need to go out to an RFP for a new management company, that it gives us time to do that properly, because the second best option would be option A, but it'd be really hard to get an RFP out because our first date to go out to an RFP would be in September to get an RFP process completely ran and a company in place by December 31st. And then option B really puts a lot of burden on us for the course should they have bad years. Like they told me just today that they haven't been making money really the last 2 years. And so that would put that full burden on us where we already struggle a lot of times with making money on the course. So we take an even bigger burden on possibly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from council?
Sure.
Go ahead, Councilor Young.
Yeah, I would say of the 3 options, C would be the best way to move forward. I just, I mean, I'm sure Michelle could sit here for a long time and spit out all of the different things that are being done that are more expensive because we as Clark County government own the land, own the course. So I think the way that we have it situated right now with the contractor running it, that creates some efficiency. But no matter what, I mean, we're looking to put a new irrigation system, and I can't even imagine how much more expensive it's going to be to Clark County to do that than if it were privately owned. So I think that it's still something that we need to divest the county of this asset. And it's unfortunate that the sale didn't go through as it was. My thoughts on this are that we paid a lot more for this course over time. The taxpayers have paid for it a lot more over time than what we are looking at selling it for. But that's because we feel that there's a community benefit to ensuring that it stays an open space, a public golf course. But I think if we move forward and we cannot find a way to sell the property with the covenant restriction that it stays a golf course, then I think we owe it to the taxpayer to pay them back in the sense that we sell it at its highest value, highest use value. I mean, that's long term. I'm hoping that we can work out a way and find an agreeable buyer for it that agrees in perpetuity to keep it as a public golf course. But I think at this point, option C is best, and we continue down the path of looking to relinquish ownership of it.
Okay, thank you. Could you go back to the options? Because of these options, these are short-term options that only might get us to the end of this calendar year. But so these, could you go over these a little bit more?
Yeah. So the first option would be go out to an RP. And like I said, we do have a date we've selected in September. That was the soonest date we could get, just to have a holding date if that was an option you decided to go. And we would go out to an RFP to ask basically for proposals on managing the course and hopefully get into something that's more economical for the county, where maybe we're getting more revenue off of the course instead of it going to the management company more. Since we have been with Troon for 20 years, we think it's a good time to renegotiate and look at something new. And Troon may still be the bidder that comes in, but it gives us a lot more options, see what else is out there for a management agreement. The second one is to bring management in-house, which would, like I said, require that we hire new employees. We would need people to run the golf shop. We would need people to maintain the grounds. We would need people to repair the equipment out there. So it would require bringing in a lot more employees to manage it ourselves that we currently don't have on staff to do those kind of tasks. So that would be another option. Another one would be to do a direct negotiation with a governmental agency. So that is an allowable thing under county code, that we can direct negotiate with other governmental agencies for a sale with them. So that could be something. As we said, Le Center and Callis were both interested parties who looked at the course and came during our bid process. And so those could be ones, but there might be other governmental agencies out there who would be interested in the course. So that would be another option. Or we could try to go back out to auction again with the covenant in place, like we did this auction, that it has to stay a golf course, and see if we get any bidders again this time. Or we could go back out to auction with no restrictions in place and sell it as highest value for, and that they could look at possibly zoning it for something else or keeping it as a golf course. That would be an option. Or we could use the property for some other use besides a golf course, whether that be parks, putting something else out there. But that could be an option the council looks at. And there's probably others. These are just the ones that we could think of that could be possible uses for the course.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for all this information. And I don't golf, but I definitely want to advocate for the community who does. This seems like a good option for affordable golf and outdoor recreation at one of our on our land. That's something that we should support. I heard some encouraging news here that we have not been upside down, as you call it, or we've been ahead since 2017, except for the blip of the short-term contract this year.
In the fund 4008, the general fund is still supporting other portions of
Revenue
it,
over expenses from the contract.
just in that.
Yeah, we've been ahead. So that's good. And then I don't know if I agree with Councillor Young exactly about that we would be less efficient because we're running it. It seems like we contract out for all these things, including irrigation that is estimated at 400,000. We would contract out to someone who specializes in that, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I saw that the worst case scenario deferred maintenance request, which would be replace all the buildings, $8 million, replace all the pathways, repave them all, 1 million. But then I saw a much more manageable option of upkeep and maintenance, which you had quoted as $3 million.
Yeah.
But it also included that 1 million that was the estimate of
correct.
Replacing all the pavement. So if we were just filling potholes and replacing places where the roots were cracking the pathway, that would be much less. So to me, this looks like something that is providing some revenue. It's not requiring much more cost than a normal park that we try to provide services to the public from. And so I guess if I would be interested in giving this 2 years, run the way it is, and then we come back and see how it's been on our budget and how it's been for the community, how it's been with these contracts, and then reconsider whether we go out for a sale or RFP at that point. But then also to extend the contract for option C as staff suggested.
Thank you. Councilor Belcott. You're muted.
Michelle, could we do both C and the restriction for the use of it remaining a golf course? I know that our conversation kind of fell apart with Cowlitz, but maybe we just needed more time, and maybe extending the time on the RFP maybe might be helpful, and then just pick it up, put it out for RFP before the expiration of all that we've just discussed.
Yeah, we would definitely need to go out to RFP before the next contract extension expires, because we have been just extending now on a basically yearly basis. We really do need to go out to a proper RFP if we're going to continue long-term management. And yes, definitely option C, if you want to do direct negotiations, that could be part of the direct negotiations, is it has to be left as a golf course. That would be your option to do that during the negotiations.
And D, I know that there wasn't a lot of interest, but maybe since it'd been out there before, and I'm just saying maybe, maybe it might generate some interest. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, we could put it back out and see. We probably don't have a date until we could do that instead of the RP and take the September date, or we could look at a later date. So,
okay.
yeah, the auction dates fall in the same, for these type of auctions, fall in the same dates as our bid dates. So we are out of ways if we go out to a full blown auction.
It's just very important I mean, I was just looking through some emails today, and it's very important to our community. I've had a couple of discussions with different community members about it staying and remaining a golf course. So that's just very important to everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Fuentes.
There. Yeah, I share the same sentiment with Councilor Belcott and Councilor Little, that this is a community asset, right? And there aren't very many public golf courses out there, and so it's a good asset to the community. My question to you is, and I think you noted that year to date we're about $600 underwater, $600,000 underwater. Okay, now I don't know anything about golf. What I do know is that we have rainy weather here in the winter, and it doesn't pick up until warmer weather, drier weather. So have we explored the option of potentially closing for a few months out of the year?
So if you don't maintain the grass on a golf course well during months, you can get a lot more repair things. So we would, I mean, yes, that would be a possibility. You'd have to maintain some existing people to maintain stuff out there, so that you didn't, destroy your course and your grounds and stuff. But yeah, that could be a possibility, that under a new RFP, we tell them, you put it into sort of minimum during those months. But we do get some people who play out there, and people who buy year-long, memberships. So it would be a different philosophy than we've done. But yeah, I mean, that could be something that's looked at.
And I'm certainly not suggesting that we completely shut down, because there has to be maintenance done year round. And I understand that there may be a few folks that use it year round, rain or shine. However, I mean, it's costing us a lot of money to maintain a golf course open when we don't have enough people utilizing it. And so, yeah, this is something that I think that we could probably consider.
Okay. So all along, I've thought of this as more of a park than like a revenue generator option for us. And as I look at, looking at the comp plan update and where things are expanding and growing, we don't really have a strategy for that open space area around the cities. But this golf course could serve as that park open space area. Would it be possible to extend the contract for 2 years and get maybe a reduced deal because it's a longer extension? Is that even possible?
No, that's their choices they came back with, that the best they would do would be to not do the increase for 26 if we did that longer term. They would want another long-term, like 10-year agreement
Okay.
to do a decrease down. That's what I actually proposed to them, is reducing it down and even to make up for the 3 months of the higher, reduce down more significantly for the other months. And they're not willing to do that and take on a short-term agreement. I tried.
Okay, so we're left with
Those three.
those three options, and the third option, I agree, sounds like that's the reasonable option. And what would be the next steps related to the longer term decisions that we would have to make? Because it sounds like there's a majority sentiment to keep it as a golf course, that's valued as an amenity for the community.
Yes, so we'd be determining if we want to keep it as the golf course, or if we want to try and find another organization that would run it as a golf course. And so I think if you're keeping it as a golf course, those are really your two options, is whether we continue to run it or we look at selling it to another governmental agency that would keep it, or going out to bid with the restrictions that it be kept as a golf course. So those would sort of be, I think, the three that would really remain if we kept it as a golf course. And then if we did keep it in-house, then we'd have to determine, do we want to have a management company run it for us, or do we want to bring the management in-house and hire more staff? So we'd have a couple different options depending on which way we go.
What do you need today?
At this point, what we need is basically to know how we want to proceed with a short-term amendment, if we want option A, B, or C, and then we'll get that on the consent council's agenda for one of the Tuesday meetings.
It'll be on next Tuesday because that's our last council meeting of the month, and this expires the end of the month.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have a while then, because we'll be in agreement with them through 2026 to really make decision of which way you want to go with the course. So you could have some time to make a decision of what
Okay.
we're going to do.
So let me just ask the council, are there 3 thumbs up to go with option C? See, 3, 4, 5 thumbs up to go with option C. And then I don't know that we're ready to provide any additional direction now, except that we want to see it retained as a golf course for the community. And we'll talk about this again.
Chair,
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm wanting to understand the 15% that you have in there. What dollar amount does that equate to?
So their monthly fee is just over 143,000. If we had been on track and not doing a 15% increase this year and did the standard, which is usually 2%, we would have been about 127,000. So it's about a $15,000 per month increase over what had we been doing the normal increases we typically see with this contract. So.
Okay. And then just wanted to clarify my comment earlier is that I think we are united as a council that we do want to maintain this in perpetuity as a golf course, but there is the feasibility that it may not be able to do so. And I just want to make sure that we're prepared for that in the event that we are not able to find a buyer and or we're faced with tough decisions because we have, maintenance that hasn't been done on it. And so where are we going to pay for that? So just that is my goal, is to keep it a golf course, but we need to be realistic about what we have here.
Okay, with those cautionary notes, I hope you've got the direction you need for now.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, moving on to new business, assigned fund balance. Welcome, Mark.
Council, we are nearing the completion of our 2024 financial statements. And one of the last steps that we do is determine the classification of fund balance. And I'm here today to preview a staff report that'll be coming to you next Tuesday for your approval about how we want to classify our fund balance in the general fund. There are certain classifications that are done automatically, either because of policy or because of the ordinances that we already have. For example, we already classify an amount for our fund balance policy each year. That does not have to be reapproved each year by the council. We also have a few other items that are either because of accounting rules or county ordinances that we classify as assigned, and those are primarily for either non-spendable type items or are compensated absences. Those are automatically done. That leaves us with an amount that we have, which is one-time fund balance that is available for different options. There are recommendations that I'm making that we assign specific amounts for in this staff report. The first of which is an assignment for $15.3 million. Over the last few years, we have assigned amounts for capital projects, and there's a history in the staff report that you can look through. Right now, we have $15.3 million remaining that we have either committed to certain projects or are already budgeted. And those projects will be taking place in future years. In other words, at the end of 2024, those projects are in the queue to do. We've committed monies for those. And that's what that 15.3 million represents. Another amount that we have currently in the general fund is $19 million for ARPA projects, or for projects that were originally committed through ARPA, through the ARPA grant that we are still finishing with. An example of that would be our Comcast project, which is currently taking place to extend broadband out into some rural areas. That is a project that's been committed to. We are going to be paying out that money in the future. And so that $19 million represents the amount of projects that we still have to complete. The last recommendation is an assignment for the 2025 budget. When the 2025 budget was passed, we used fund balance to balance the budget. So I want to make sure that those funds are available in 2025 should we need them. And so that amount is the almost $14 million. It's just under $14 million. Those are my three recommendations for assignment. Now, assignment is it's a terminology. It's a specific terminology that we use, and it ensures that by assigning these, that these are set aside or are available. The council has the ability to change that assignment at any time. So right now, my recommendation for the financial statements at 2024 financial statements at year end, that those amounts be assigned. At the beginning of 2025, the fund balance will be the same, with that assignment in mind, that that's how we intend to use those funds during the future years. So I'm here for questions. I know that's a lot of technical commentary, and we have a couple of new counselors who haven't gone through this before, but this is a very typical process. Every year we come back and recommend what those assignments, recommend to council what assignments need to be made, and it is a council action, so it would come back to you next Tuesday in a hearing to approve the staff report.
Thank you. I have an initial question, and I wonder if any of this relieves in any way the pressure on the 2026 budget.
So what we do is we have a total fund balance at the end of each year, and there's amounts that we assign for certain purposes. These would be set aside. In addition to that, we have an unassigned amount. So after all of the assignments that we would make, there's an unassigned amount, and that amount right now is approximately $25 million. So that would be available for the budget process for future years.
And that number may be a little bit different because I think budget has commitments that it's not far from
Right.
it, but we're still refining that number and we'll bring it back to council.
Yeah, but to answer your question, yes, whatever is unassigned is available for the future, for budget for the future years.
Yeah, what Mark is presenting today is simply so that we can stay balanced for 2025 because we use one-time fund balance to balance that for 2025.
Right.
It does not have an impact on 2026.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
Here.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know, Mark, is there some information that you had intended to attach to the staff report that didn't get? Because when I looked through this thing, it was so vague, I couldn't really follow it at all. And you'd mentioned when you were talking about the 18 or the 15.3 million in capital projects that there was background about it, but I don't see that anywhere. So I'm wondering, were we missing a page?
No, but there's a detail behind each of these numbers. If you would like a list of those capital projects that make up the 15.3 million or the 19 million, the capital projects, we have a list that shows each of those.
Where is that list?
Numbers. Yeah, those, all of this has already been approved by council. I could give you a copy of that. It's not attached. I did not attach it.
Okay, it sounded from the conversation like it was attached. So yes, I definitely would like to get that list if possible.
Sure.
And you might as well send that out to all.
I'll go to everyone. Sure.
Thank you. Other questions? What do you need from us today?
So I just want to give you the opportunity to have this discussion today because this is going to be on consent next Tuesday so that you don't have to go through. If you have questions now, I can answer them ahead of time. Also, we are winding up the financial statements. And so this is an action that needs to be done by the end of the month so that we can present those to the state auditors for their audit. So that's why we do this in March each year.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
So we'll look forward to that consent agenda item.
Okay.
Okay, next up is counselor reports.
And Chair, if I can, the new item of 5.2, the April 1st.
I'm sorry.
And I think
5.2.
I may have said 4.2, but it should have been 5.2
Oh,
under new business.
Oh, it's 4.2, not, and I missed it as far as 4.3 is if it had been there.
should,
So,
yeah.
okay, 4.2, April 1st.
Yeah, and just to clarify for minutes, it's 5.2 under
Oh, I'm
new
sorry,
business. It's
5.2.
I misspoke initially. So April 1st is a Tuesday council meeting that we have regularly scheduled, and we also have a Wednesday meeting. That is spring break, and I understand some counselors are not going to be available, and also I would assume some public would not be available as well. I would recommend moving that meeting to the following Tuesday, April 8th at 10 a.m. and then also canceling our work session and council time that week as well.
Okay, any feedback from the council on that?
Chair,
Yes.
just curious, the work session, is that something that'll be able to be moved just like to the next week, or?
Absolutely.
something-
We don't have anything scheduled that week
Okay,
purposely.
okay.
So yes, we have the ability to juggle. Thank you.
Thank you.
He loves his book sessions.
Great. Okay, we don't want to miss a work session. All right, any other reports? I actually have a report. I wanted to report back on the C-Tran meeting. I know the council spent a lot of time deliberating on the vote that was coming up before C-Tran. And I guess it was a long meeting, but just to, I guess, put this as succinctly as possible, the motion, whether or not to have permissive language for C-Tran related to O&M for light rail, which was adopted by the C-Tran board in November and came back to the C-Tran board last night for reconsideration. So Councilor Belcott moved to go back to the original language, which would not be permissive. And in the end, the motion was tabled. And so it will come back again in the April meeting. But I just wanted to clarify for the council, because it was my, understanding that we had made a pretty clear recommendation on advising the two counselors, Counselor Belcotta and myself, on how to vote, and that would have been to support the language that was adopted in November. So I bring this back to the council. I feel obligated to do that because I don't feel like the direction that was given by the council was actually followed by both of us. And we have another chance to go back. And so I'm just looking to the council to advise me on how to move forward with this.
Chair,
Yes.
I've been on C-Tran for almost 2 years, and I have voted differently than Chair Mevaji in several different things in C-Tran. We don't have anything in our bylaws or the C-Tran bylaws that preclude us from not having our own individual vote and not representing our constituents in our districts. That's never been an issue. There's been a history of counselors that have been on the C-Tran board that have voted differently. I've always had my own individual vote, and I think it's pretty dangerous if you're not able to represent your constituents in your districts. As you've mentioned before, our districts are all very different. My particular district is not interested in footing the bill of an Oregon transportation system that's having extreme financial difficulties. And I'd like to mention as well, the IBR program, the bridge was moving along without us footing the tab of the O&M expenses of TriMet. This was never anything about jeopardizing the bridge, which I think we all collectively support and want this bridge. But this light rail issue is politicizing the IBR. And county residents have voted in 95, 2012, 2013 to oppose light rail. They want the bridge without the light rail. And this is a matter of, if you include light rail, which it can still be included if that's what people, want to do. But this project was always moving forward without the C-Tran board footing the bill of light rail. That was never a thing. This was recently, as when C-Tran came and presented to us, they mentioned this is something that was proposed by the city. We are the county. I am a county counselor for District 2, and I represent my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the vote was on whether or not to have permissive language related to O&M. It was not to provide O&M funding. It was to allow C-Tran to be in a better negotiating position related to O&M.
That's what this language does. It allows it allows our taxpayers in Clark County to foot the bill and bear the burden.
Okay, I don't believe that's accurate, Counselor Belcott.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question related to this, and I saw Counselor Young's hand up before me. Counselor, did you have
Counselor
something to say?
Young, did you want to say something?
Okay, first I just had a question for our attorney. Do we have language in our bylaws that counselors on committees should follow the vote of the council when they represent that same issue on their committee?
No, that language is not in your rules of procedure.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting because I feel like I signed up for that kind of protocol. And I know other cities have that. So a simple fix, I would think, would be to include a provision in the bylaw. Maybe it's not simple. Actually, my next question is, what would be the process for changing the bylaws to include that direction as other cities have?
If you want it in a rules of procedure, it would take a public hearing. And then it would, after that is done and if approved, then it would pass. And I would just, as you're going through your thought process, think about, are you looking at that for all of your council boards and commissions?
Yeah, and just I am thinking about that for everything. I mean, I agree, I hear the sentiment from Councilor Belcott that it's difficult to go against what your constituents think in a meeting but when you're representing the whole council at that meeting, it's very similar to a vote at the in the council here up at the dais. The result of a majority vote has implications, and you go with the majority, even if you voted against it. What happens is by majority vote. So when I am representing the council on any committee, I would certainly vote what the council voted as a majority opinion on any committee where I am representing the council. I just think that's common practice.
Just for historical perspectives, that's never happened. So I just wanted to let you know that usually counselors would come back and provide updates of what happened at boards and commissions, but we'll have to think about logistics as well, if that is the will of the council to do that with all of them, because that will add a lot more discussions during our Tuesday meeting to get that direction for you.
Well, sorry to interject here, but language could be drafted that would make direction from the council mandatory only if the council gave direction. So the council might not be giving direction to.
Because he had the assumption that that's what he was doing was.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, it could be cast more narrowly. I don't recall, excuse me, in the 2 years I've been on the council, that there was ever a request of the council to provide guidance to C-Tran or any other committee. But in this instance, that was how the issue was framed, that we needed guidance for this upcoming vote with C-Tran. It was framed that way. It was repeated. I haven't seen it happen before where there was that directive from council. And I would think that the council's directive by a majority of the council would prevail.
Chair.
Yes, go ahead. Oh,
I recall the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago where it was explicit and we all agreed and we took a vote 4-1 to keep the existing MLPA language related to O&M in light rail and to communicate that sentiment to C-Tran, and that wasn't done. Although I understand it may not be in the bylaws, but we were all in agreement here in this dais, and that wasn't done by Councilor Belcon.
Chair, I was not in agreement. I have my own opinion and I am not restricted by our bylaws as we all just discussed. And I would like to remind the council, there were municipalities that voted to not support the modified language. Councilor Little and Chair Marshall, both your districts were involved in that. They do not support including and footing the bill for TriMet Light Rail. So if you want to make this bylaw change, there are going to be some serious repercussions for your constituents. So keep that in mind.
as each of the municipalities indicated, there were various votes from each of the jurisdictions, and there was no vote on whether or not to return to the original language or take what was adopted in November. There was a majority vote to table the matter, and that was 6-3 and included some of my jurisdictional municipalities. So
Chair.
go ahead. Please, Councilor Fuentes has the floor.
Chair, in my conversations with my constituents in my district, they support light rail. And based on the public comment last night, the majority of the folks were in District 1 as they communicated that to the C-Tran Council, and they also supported light rail. So no, it's not all of Clark County that is opposed to light rail. I think that the majority of the folks, particularly those that live in urban Clark County, support light rail.
Councilor Young?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we're overdoing this, to be honest with you, and let me explain. First of all, when we talk about bylaws, you know, I appreciate that Councilor Belcott brought up the issue and brought it forefront in her actions on the C-Tran board previously, because I think that the issue was a much larger issue that needed to be dealt with by the council as a whole, as opposed to just the two that are on the C-Tran board. So I'd like to thank her, and that's where I agree with her. We have appointed her to that board, and we give her that latitude to make decisions. It's really unfeasible for every vote that goes through the C-Tran board to be brought and discussed at the council level. Sorry, I'm still recovering. However, there's a big difference. So the two seats on C-Tran board, they don't belong to a council district. They belong to the Board of County Councilors as a whole. And so when the Board of County Council is aware of an issue, decides to discuss it and take an official position, at that point, that is what we have assigned the representatives on that board that represent our council to do. I don't think it needs to be in our bylaws. Like I said, when there's a large issue, the council as a whole can bring it up, and at that point direct the representation to represent the council as a whole on that board. But it's concerning to me that we have a counselor that is on a board that has chosen to vote in opposition of the council as a whole. And I don't care about this issue. To me, it's not about light rail or not light rail. This is about how we, in our assigned boards and committees, how we conduct business. And I think that it's very clear when the council as a whole gives a direction that needs to be followed. You know, I have displayed this on many occasions where there's been a resolution or a letter or something that the council as a whole has agreed to. I was a no vote on it, but I still put my name on that letter because the council as a whole has made a decision. So quite frankly, in my opinion, if we have a counselor that is not willing to reflect the will of the council as a whole, they need to be relieved of that position and somebody else placed in it that will represent the council as a whole. Because this will go a lot further than just light rail in the future. I think this is an important piece of process that we need to dial in right now.
Chair?
Councilor Belcott.
For those who were not in attendance last night, Yakult, La Center, Ridgefield, Washougal, Battleground, and Camas voted against the light rail language and funding TriMet and our taxpayers. The city was the sole united voter along with Chair Marshall. I did not. I have never once ever been told to ever collectively vote. And I have an individual vote, as I've said now, this is my third or fourth time saying during this conversation, and historically in C-Tran. And you know what, Councilor Young, good for you for wanting to put your signature on something that you didn't agree with, which to me makes no sense. But the Clark County Council has taken a stance against light rail for over a decade, which we also have a dedicated webpage on. This isn't something new. And this is something that I ran on with my constituents. They do not want it in Clark County. They would like a new bridge with additional lanes of traffic. That would be nice. But this is not what they want. And for I'm sorry, Chair Marshall, with all due respect, the majority last night did not vote for this. They vote to support the bridge without the light rail. Thank you.
There was no vote last night except to table the measure.
They
Counselor
voted for the
Fuentes?
nays. They voted
Excuse
nay
me.
against tabling it.
Councilor Fuentes has the floor.
Chair, the jurisdictions that Councilor Belcott just mentioned, she went through this list, all went back to their councils and asked for their vote. Yes, the majority of them declined to support the existing language, and that's what the representatives went and spoke about. And they listened to their council. And it's what should be done at Clark County Council as well. And that wasn't done by Councilor Belcott. And I agree with Councilor Young that if one of our councilors, regardless of what the topic or the issue is, does not adhere to council's direction, they should be removed from that committee or commission or board.
Not in our bylaws. So what would you like to do about this? Are you all proposing that we change this in our bylaws, which has never been a thing?
We're still discussing what options there might be. Does anyone want to make a proposal?
I move to remove Councilor Belcott from the C-Tran board as a result of not adhering to County Council's direction on the vote of 4-1 to keep the existing MLPA language related to the O&M in light rail.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those
Sure.
in favor?
Chair,
Oh,
just real quick.
yes, go ahead.
I would
You-
just say one last time that both of these seats belong to the Board of County Councilors. They do not belong to the chair. They do not belong to any specific district. They are for the board as a whole. And the board as a whole makes assignments as to who is going to represent the board in various committees throughout all the different committees we have.
Thank you. Any other comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 The reluctance, aye.
Opposed, no.
Nay.
Okay, 4-1, ayes have it. Thank you.
Legal, I have a question. Since this is not in our bylaws and has never been such a situation, I'm asking for legal counsel on this, an opinion.
I cannot give an opinion at this time, Counselor. I agree, it hasn't happened. And that is all I can say at this moment.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd also like to just propose that at a future session, we consider potential language from other jurisdictions like ours and see what kind of language is out there that would be appropriate for us to add to the bylaws.
Thank you for that. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just one more
Councilor Young.
thing too. A statement that was made a little bit earlier was, I would say it's not quite accurate because there was a point in time when I served on the WASAC Board of Directors that I came to the council for direction on a larger decision. And that had to do with when they were looking at changing how the funding structure was, and that increased the amount of money that Clark County was going to have to pay. And I did seek council direction as a whole on that because I felt like it was a larger decision than I should just make on a whim by myself. So I believe in being collaborative, and the majority voice speaks, and that's the way it is. You know, there are 5 of us that are supposed to make the decisions for the county, and that doesn't mean that all 5 are always going to agree to the same thing, but the path forward is determined by the majority.
Okay, so there's been a suggestion for us to look at our rules of procedures and other jurisdictions' language related to this sort of thing as far as directing individual counselors to represent the full body. Are others interested in better defining that and amending our rules of procedure? I see 3 thumbs up.
I'll support it. I still feel like it's unnecessary. This should be a volunteer thing. This should be, to me, a basic understanding of how the system should work. But if we've got to define it in our bylaws, I guess we'll need to define it in our bylaws. Or
Okay,
rules of procedure.
well, the thumbs up is to get more information and bring something back to the council, and we can decide at a future date.
Sure.
Go ahead.
And so what is the next step for filling that seat, and who is our alternate currently?
Councilor Fuentes is the alternate.
So
Councilor
what would be
Fuentes.
the next what would be the process for filling that seat? Is it automatic or is it take a vote?
No, the alternate is only there if there is somebody who cannot attend. So I would suggest that council decide who the second person is to be on the board and an alternate.
And do that now? Okay. Councilor Fuentes, are you interested in serving on the?
Yes,
C-Tran
I
board?
would be interested in sitting on the C-Tran board.
Is someone interested as an alternate?
Chair, I'd be interested as an alternate.
Okay. Are there at least 3 counselors who agree to that? I see 3 on the dice, 4. Okay, so we can move forward with that. Thank you for stepping up. Okay, item 7, work session requests, DEEB annual update and work plan.
Yes, this is just an annual update that the Development Engineering Advisory Board does with council. So they talk about their accomplishments for 2024 and then also the 2025 work plan to solicit feedback from council.
Sounds good. Everyone agreeable on that? Okay. Now, moving on to policy updates.
Good afternoon, counselors. Jordan Bogey, Senior Policy Analyst. I have a few updates for us here today. The first update is related to, we've got up here, the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board has written the council a letter. You should also have this in your email inboxes. But they are concerned that the federal budget that is currently being under consideration in Congress has a number of proposed cuts to Medicaid services, and so the Clark County Developmental Disabilities Program serves a lot of folks and relies pretty heavily on Medicaid dollars, and so they have asked that the council do everything that they can to help preserve Medicaid service dollars, and that could involve writing a letter to congressional folks at the federal level. We can also follow along with what the state is doing. If this budget passes, there may be some efforts at the state level to help kind of backfill some of those funds, or at least react to what happens there. And so just would bring this forward just mostly for council's understanding and knowledge that this is out here, and then to just kind of raise this for conversation. If letters are something that the council wants to do at this time, we can put those together. Otherwise, I think we can follow along with the progress of the budget and see what these potential cuts to Medicaid services may look like going forward.
Okay, comments? What advice are you looking for, Jordan?
Mostly just, this is mostly an update, but if council feels compelled to, potentially write a letter or something in the short term, we could do that. I don't know that I'm necessarily recommending that right this moment, but this is something that is likely to move forward. And so I just really wanted to get this on your radar. This just got sent over yesterday from the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board.
Okay, what's the council's pleasure? Do you want to do anything now or wait and see how this plays out?
I think this is, yeah, I'm okay with waiting to see how it plays out. This is a very concerning issue of losing almost $1 billion to a community that it's incredibly vulnerable and in need of Medicaid. But I don't know how much influence we could potentially have. However, I think a letter, I mean, is probably the best option at this time.
Other counselors? Sounding like maybe a wait and see at this moment and figure out where we could be strategic on this issue.
Sounds great. I've had really great communication from our staff contact with the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, Trish Buescher, and I know that that group and Susan Cassidy as the chair who wrote the letter to you, they're all pretty involved in this, and they're going to keep us up to date on any developments. So thanks for listening to the update, and more to come, I would imagine, as these things move forward.
Thank you. And could you pass on our thanks for keeping us up to date?
Absolutely. Happy to do that. So next update for you today is this is following up on the request that I shared with council last week from the Discovery Clean Water Alliance. They are putting in a request to Senator Murray's office for congressional directed spending to support upgrades at the Salmon Creek wastewater treatment plant for some positive displacement blowers. Which I am not a technical expert in wastewater treatment, but my understanding is that will help them process the wastewater more effectively. And so this is the letter that we've put together to support that council supported last week. And so just looking for a final thumbs up on this letter to send out to the Clean Water Alliance as part of their application package for these congressionally directed spending funds.
Okay, thumbs up on this one.
Yeah, I think I'm a thumbs up, but what is the dollar amount that we were requesting?
The dollar amount requested, let me see if I can pull that up real quick here. And this is not...
This is their, the wastewater treatment plant's request and our letter of support. But yeah, what is that dollar amount?
Yes, let me see. They may not have actually mentioned the... No, here it is. They are requesting $2.7 million.
Okay, thumbs up. See 3. Well, you have 3.
Thank you, council.
Okay, 4. Go ahead.
All right. Next item on the list is related to the conversation that council has had related to wanting to meet with DNR Commissioner Upthegrove and the Dabbler letter. So there's 2 items here. The first is that I have been in contact with Commissioner Upthegrove's chief of staff. She has indicated that it might take a little while to get the commissioner down for a public meeting at a work session, but that he would be willing to meet with the chair and one other counselor and just kind of talk generally about policy around preserving forest land and how the county wants to move forward and work with DNR into the future. They also indicated to me that during this conversation, they would not be likely discussing Dabbler because they don't want to talk about ongoing litigation. As we know, there is a temporary restraining order currently on the cutting there at the Dabbler site, and they have another hearing in a couple of weeks to look at that injunction. And so the request is for if council would like to have me set up a meeting with the commissioner and the chair and one other counselor, if they would like to do that as we work towards getting him in here for a future work session and a more full conversation with the whole council at a later date.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. I think since there's going to be a hearing on the 24th, I would propose actually holding off on the letter. This one that's in front of us isn't exactly how I think we would phrase it, especially since we haven't had positive responses on either of our requests twice in a row. One for an in-person meeting to talk about the plans for older growth forests, and second to halt the cuts. So I think a third letter would be redundant at this time. So we should probably see how that court proceeding is going, and then reconsider a letter at that time. But yes, it would be wonderful to see the Public Lands Commissioner here in person or on virtually, if that's possible. And I think that would be preferable than having a private meeting between just a couple of us, because then the public would be able to see, and he would be able to present to us and the public about plans for the older growth forests, which I know are important to him as well. And I know I assume they're creating some sort of plan. So we'd like to be part of that discussion. It would be nice to have that in public if available.
Sounds good. And I know there was a suggestion for us to confer with Hunter Decker, our county forester, and Kevin Tyler related to our lands program, which I think would be good for us to understand where Dabbler or any of the DNR's lands play into what our land program could be, or our concerns about forests. So it'd be good to get that briefing maybe in advance of the meeting with the commissioner.
That's a good idea. That would be great.
So
Yes.
do you want to accept the invitation for the chair and one other counselor to meet with the commissioner now? I don't believe, and that I think Jordan mentioned that he's not available in the near future for a public meeting, but they could certainly coordinate something with two counselors. So is council interested in moving forward with that now?
Well, go ahead.
I don't know if that's exactly what Jordan said. If you could clarify, Jordan, did we get a clear answer for the commissioner that he would not meet with us in a public setting?
No, I didn't get a clear answer on that, but scheduling that, I was advised that it will take some time given his schedule and, being constrained mostly to Wednesday mornings typically. And we can be a little bit more flexible if it's just a meeting with two counselors and the commissioner. I didn't get an indication that the commissioner wouldn't be willing to come down and join a public meeting at some point in the future, but it wasn't right away. So if the council is interested in connecting with the commissioner in the shorter term, this would be the way to do this, to connect more quickly, with just two counselors having that conversation initially, and then working towards a work session whenever we can get that scheduled. But I've been advised that might take a little bit longer.
Okay, I understand scheduling conflicts, but I wouldn't want to leave them off the hook, because that was our first request weeks ago. And so there's been plenty of time to have a meeting virtually with us in a public setting. So I'd like us to wait until he can find the time to spend 15 minutes with us virtually from his office. That would be great.
But knowing that might take some time before we would have that opportunity, I guess I wouldn't mind doing something sooner to check in with him. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a mixed message for you there, Jordan.
I guess if we need a thumbs up thing, I would ask if the council would be okay with us waiting till we can meet with him in person, in a public setting, and also to hold off on the letter until after the hearing on the 24th. Could we ask for a thumbs up on that?
We can, but I would agree with the holding off on the letter and moving forward, at least with a couple of us meeting with him. But that's not to let him off the hook for the public meeting with everyone. So there's those. I'd like all three of those things. But you made a recommendation. I don't know. How do others feel about this?
I think if there's an opportunity to do it sooner than later, with at least 2 council members to meet with him and initiate the discussion, and I imagine it can be reported back to council in a public setting, then I think that you should take advantage of it. Otherwise, we're going to be waiting a lot longer before there's an opportunity to meet with Up the Grove.
Other counselors, because we have
two.
the 3 of us that don't, we need a third.
We
vote.
just need a third on having the meeting with 2 counselors.
I guess I will go ahead and join that. This was a
Okay.
tough one. I see both sides of this argument. I think realistically, there's a good chance that if we just have 2 counselors meet with him, that we probably won't end up having the public one. But if we don't agree to that, then we may not have anything. So I guess I would lend my support to 2 counselors meeting with him.
Well, I guess I would say 2 counselors on the condition that we do have a public meeting with him.
Okay.
And I can promise you, council, that your direction has been very clear that you also desire a public meeting, and I will stick on DNR, and we will get a public meeting scheduled. And we'll keep working on them, even if we end up having 2 counselors meet with the commissioner.
And
go ahead, Councilor.
Thumbs up with that extra condition that you added.
Yeah, that'll be a condition of it.
Who would be the second counselor with the chair?
I nominate Council Little. I know we're not nominating, but I would recommend Council Little.
That sounds appropriate to me.
Yeah,
Other
I
thoughts?
agree.
Oh, could you accept?
Yeah, I would enjoy that.
Okay, good.
Can I get a clarifying before we move on our Forrester and Kevin coming to give information? What information would you like to learn about and when? I want to make sure we're.
Well, I think from my perspective, yeah, I'm not altogether clear what all the county forester does. So I'd like a little briefing on that. Related to the Legacy Lands program, I know there's been a lot of focus on like the East Fork, and we have our priorities. So maybe briefing on what our priorities have been. I don't know that these forest lands have necessarily been on our radar. So just getting an opinion about how any of this might work or could be a priority related to the lands we're trying to preserve in Clark County.
Chair?
Yes.
And just to add to that, just what are the lands in our jurisdiction that are harvested, and where do those funds go, and on what kind of rotations are they on? I'd just love to see a map of where these forests are and which ones we're harvesting or the DNR is.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that might be state DNR on that, but we can.
Yeah, just big picture, whatever you can provide.
And then when?
Before we meet with the commissioner, I don't know when that would be.
Wait, I'll get staff looking at that, and then I'll wait for Jordan to report back on when the
and I
timing
think it'd
is.
be good for the entire council to hear.
Yeah.
I'll
work with Kathleen on getting it on the schedule.
I know there's a lot on the schedule. Thank you very much for all of that. Okay, Jordan, next item.
Thank you, council. And just to clarify, there was also was part of that direction to hold off on the letter.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the list today, we got a request from the Vancouver Bee Project for a proclamation related to Pollinator Week, which is June 16th through the 22nd. They sent over a draft proclamation, which you have in front of you. And so today we'll be looking for a thumbs up. If you would like to do a Pollinator Week proclamation, I will get this edited and put into council format and work with the folks at the Vancouver Bee Project to find someone to come and accept.
Okay, how does the council feel about this? I'm all for it.
Yeah, pollinators are in trouble, so I'm some support.
Yeah, we support our pollinators. Thank you.
Thank you, council. The next item I have for you today is related to the IBR resolutions on the county council webpage. Last week during council time, we had a discussion that council was going to review the existing resolutions and see if there was interest in either putting together a new resolution, leaving the resolutions in place or taking them down or leaving the old ones up and putting a new one up as well. Basically just trying to see how council would like to proceed regarding that website on the county council page and the resolutions related to the IVR.
Have councilors had an opportunity to read the resolutions, and what's your advice on that?
I don't know why we would take any down. It's good history to show the progression of different thoughts on the council over time.
And I agree with that. I think they should stay up.
Sounds good to me.
And what about drafting an additional resolution from this council? Is there interest in doing?
Yeah, I think so.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it would be
Sure.
good for someone. Go ahead, Councilor Young.
I would just add this. A resolution's not going to make a difference, no matter what. You know, it's not something that is going to be looked at and be the final straw on anything. And I think we have seen that this is an extremely divisive issue, and I would just rather let it run its course at this point and not even bother with resolutions on it. That's just my personal opinion. I'm so sick and tired of the divisiveness.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Chair?
Yes.
Is there any statement on these policy web pages that of which policy statement takes precedence, or that the current one is the current one and the other ones are from previous? I could just imagine someone looking at it being very confused that they're all council statements and may not know that there have been different council makeups over time. I just wonder if there'd be a way to explain that there are different.
They're in order of date. The number is by date and the signatures are on there. We don't say this is the first one, the second one, but you can see the progression.
Yeah.
I don't sense any enthusiasm for a resolution, so I would suggest we just pause on that, and if it's determined that it is needed or would be helpful for the public, we can wait till that time comes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Jordan?
Thank you, Council. Yeah, a couple more things. So the next thing I wanted to bring forward is another update related to the bridge shelter and the county's ability to support, as Council has directed us to do. So some good news related to the Carillon contract. Carillon has indicated to our staff that they are willing and able to amend the contract that the county has with Carillon to set aside the funds requested and manage those funds, contracting with the city of Vancouver, just like Carillon would manage a contract with any other entity that receives opioid funds. And then those contracts are managed by Carillon as well. So really the thing I'd be looking for a thumbs up on here would be if council is approving to have Kathleen sign an amendment to that effect. The original staff report and approval that council gave at a Tuesday meeting for the contract with Carillon does give Kathleen the ability as county manager to sign amendments to the contract. And so if council is supportive of moving forward with this, as you've indicated previously, we just need a thumbs up. Basically, that would allow Kathleen to sign an amendment that would set aside those funds for supporting of the bridge shelter. And then once we have a proposal from the city of Vancouver that includes, the line item budget, the details about the services that will be providing, the information about how they're going to comply with all of the requirements around the opioid settlement and the uses of those funds, then Carillon will be able to contract with the city of Vancouver as they would contract with any other recipient of opioid dollars.
Okay, thank you for that research. I see 3 thumbs up. Any additional thumbs up to give Kathleen that authority? Counselor
Yes.
Young and Belcott, how say you?
Thumbs up, but I did have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
So that will that mean so that Carillon then will be administering a contract with the city of Vancouver?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we have, I think, 4 thumbs up on that.
Thank you, Council. And then just one other item for you today. So on Monday, we spent some time discussing with our lobbyists Senate Bill 5184. And this is a bill that concerns minimum parking requirements in the UGA. It limits the number of parking spots that cities and counties can impose for residential and commercial buildings of certain sizes, prohibits minimum parking requirements for certain building types. It directs the State Building Code Council to research and adopt rules relating to updated accessible parking space requirements to align with current research on disability rates among drivers. And it repeals certain minimum parking requirements for cities and counties planning under the Growth Management Act. Specifically, cities and counties may not require more than 0.5 parking spaces per residential dwelling unit, and cities and counties may not require more than 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet of commercial space. There are some exceptions, including that a county may not require off-street parking if the county's roads are not developed to the standards for streets and roads adopted by the cities within that county. And I know that on Monday, Council wasn't sure if there was interest in taking a position on this bill or not at the time. And so folks wanted to have a couple days to go back and think about that a little bit. So bringing that back up to see if Council would like to take a position at this point on Senate Bill 5184.
And just to clarifying, this is just within growth boundaries, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Council, how do you feel about this?
I support it.
Okay, there's 3 thumbs up. Any others? Okay, 3 thumbs up. What else do you have?
That is that's all I've got for you today, Council. Thank you.
Jordan?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Really
Yes,
quick.
go ahead.
Any updates on Senate Bill 5696?
5696, as of Monday, it had moved into the House Finance Committee. Let me check right now if there has been any other movement. No, it still looks like it's in the House Finance Committee. Today is the cutoff for bills to leave their House of Origin. And so if they don't leave their House of Origin by today, they are not moving forward unless they are considered necessary to implement the budget. And so this bill is moving forward. As I noted last week, it was unanimous in the House. So so still feeling positive about where the bill is at currently.
Thank you.
Okay, policy updates concluded. We will be moving into an executive session, 9.1. Was that potential after action, potential litigation?
No. Pending litigation,
Pending.
no after action.
No after action. Okay, RCW 4230.110, paren, what, is that I1? And little I, for 30 minutes. So that would get us around to 3:30. Okay.
Good afternoon. The Clark County Council Chair has asked me to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 15 minutes and open session will reconvene at 3:45. Thank you.
Okay, the council has returned from our executive session. There's no after action, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned.